Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are in the world, welcome back to The Caring Economy with me, your host, Toby Usnik. Today, I get to hang out with Matthew Zachary. He is a 30-year brain cancer survivor, troublemaker, and one of the most irreverent voices in American healthcare, which we need. At 21, Matthew went from being a classically trained pianist with dreams of composing music to becoming a young adult with a brain tumor, stuck in a system that didn't seem to know what to do with him. So out of that chaos, he built Stupid Cancer, which we're going to talk about. And he helped launch the young adult cancer movement and became what some call the podfather of healthcare. I love that. Through shows like the Stupid Cancer Show and his current podcast, Out of Patience. That's Patients, by the way, for those of you not seeing us on YouTube. Now he's thinking even bigger, how to organize cancer survivors and allies as political and a cultural voting bloc. Genius, a force that could actually move policy, not just hashtags, and regardless of your party affiliation, where you live, who you are, or what you think about. So, Matthew, welcome to the Caring Economy.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Funkle Toby.
That's my hashtag, my profile, folks, on TikTok. Those of you who aren't on TikTok, Funkle Toby, the fun uncle you want for life and career advice. And today we're going to honor that by talking to Matthew about cancer survivor and ways forward and scaling, right? So,
yeah.
Matthew, tell us a little bit about your journey, like before the cancer, even like how you were raised, where you got started, maybe mentors, pivots, bumps along the way, and how you found your way.
Yeah, just a disclosure to your viewers and listeners, I'm 4 days out of a massive cough. So if you hear I'm not sick, it's my white cells fighting back.
Good. Keep on fighting.
Still alive 30 years later to have problems, which is a good problem to have, I suppose.
Yes. Amen.
I was a precocious kid. I was naturally just, I wasn't a single child. I had a younger brother, but I acted like a single child. And I was gifted back when you could use that word. And I was put into all these sort of like special public education classes. And I was in psychotherapy for whatever the hell was wrong with me back then. And, you know, I guess today's divergent is the right word for that. But I was just a precocious kid. And I think the most fun story to tell that kind of paved the way for who I was before I got sick, nothing's really changed. I'm just a little more angry, bitter, and things hurt now that I'm turning 52, was that I'm a control freak. I'm an artist. I'm a control freak. I didn't even know I was a musician until I was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
But the quick story was that in nursery, I got expelled from nursery school. And here's how that story worked out.
Started early.
So there was nap time. And I'm making numbers up. Let's say there were 15 kids in the class and there were 14 good mats and one crappy mat to lay on for nap time. I always knew to get the first mat. I always knew, in my mind, I knew timeline when the teacher was going to call nap time, and I would grab the first mat, and I just knew. According to my mom, who recanted the story to me, whatever, I was in the bathroom one day, and I missed nap time, and I got the crappy 15th mat that no one wanted, and I lost my freaking mind, and I bit the teacher, and then I bit the principal, and I got expelled. So that was me. Did
you have rabies?
Yeah, I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. So, but yet I did know what was wrong with me. I'm me, and this is what it was. So I was always marching to the beat of a different drummer. Even at school, undergraduate, I made my own major. I went to the school. I don't like what you're doing. I want to do this. Can you make this work? And yeah, Binghamton was like, all right. So I made my own major.
It's SUNY Binghamton, right? The great state university.
Which, by the way, you can't say that anymore. It's Binghamton University, and they will come find you.
Not SUNY?
Well, we call it SUNY Binghamton because that's what it was, and they don't like that because that's a negative old brand. They're not as prestigious unless they're Binghamton University.
SUNY, the State University of New York, one of the greatest systems of higher ed in this country.
Truly, Kool-Aid drinking, credit card paying,
available to all
alumni of the whole system.
Anyway,
yeah, so that was me. I was doing all the things I wanted to do. I was a computer nerd and a coder and a composer and a sociology major and a playwright and musical theater geek. All these things. And I just wanted to go off to grad school and I wanted to write for TV and film and be a composer and boom. And then, man plans, God laughs. And then, sorry, Matt, you have terminal brain cancer. Your left hand doesn't work anymore. Good luck. And that was 1996.
We're going to come back to that. But tell us first about when the music came into your life. You said you didn't know until like 12. Did you someone realized about you? You realized about yourself? Or that's kind of late?
Well, back in the day, in the 1980s in New York City, they forced you to play an instrument in like 5th grade. Mm-hmm. So I got stuck on what was like trumpet or something like that. So I learned treble clef. And but I got to sixth grade the next year, and they had enough trumpet players, so they forced me to go on baritone horn, where I learned bass clef. So I learned how to read treble and bass clef on two completely separate brass instruments. But at the same time, my mom was a pianist growing up. She had not played in years and years and years. She started temping at a school, and there was a piano in the kindergarten classroom. She started playing again and said to my dad, "Hey Lou, why don't we get a little piano for the house so I could play?" And sure enough, I showed up from school one day in sixth grade, and there's a little tiny Baldwin Spinett in the living room where like the
Yeah.
couch used to be. I'm like, "Where's the couch?" And my mom is playing, I don't know, like Put on a Happy Face or something from some show.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Where do you put your fingers?" And she showed me. And because I kind of knew treble and bass a little bit, I just naturally started playing.
Yeah.
And she like, "You're getting lessons." Like, all right. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm on this 10-year path of a classically trained Juilliard graduate teaching me the ropes. But I was late. 11 and a half was late back in those
Yes.
days.
Yeah.
But I took to it and it just became my thing. And I went from classical to jazz to Broadway to new age to film composition to musical theater, the whole panoply. And I was a human jukebox. And I memorized every Billy Joel song because that's what the girls wanted.
Wow. So I took piano for 8 years. I play by practice. I don't have the ear, but I can read music. I think that's an important thing for people to learn is to read music. It's another language.
Yes,
But do you play by ear as well as by,
both.
yeah. And so before we jump into the cancer piece, can you talk about that in your life and how music as a language and as an expression, how that has influenced you or shaped you? Because I think it's quite important for all of us to have some kind of appreciation for music. I want to project that on you.
No, it's it's my soul.
Yeah.
It's my inner spirit. It's how I feel I resonate with existence at
Hmm.
its core.
Mm.
And regardless of your woo-woo or dogma or religious beliefs, resonance and frequency are everything. That is what makes up all energy in the universe, resonance and frequency. That's not religion per se. That's just the way in which everything is, resonance and frequency. And music is just I love this definition. My jazz professor opened up Jazz 101 at school. Music is sound organized by silence.
Huh. I thought you were going to say mathematical because that's another aspect of it, which I like. You talk about the frequency, and that's all very much mathematical, right?
Well,
So,
there's natural frequencies and harmonies that just occur in nature,
yeah.
but what we as a species have created is organizing sound around the silence with
Okay.
intention.
Yeah.
And that is my inner spirit. That's my soul. I think the challenge I have is I hear things different than most people. When you are a musician, you kind of know, oh, they're off pitch a little bit, or like, and like bothers you. Oh, God, that American Idol, just so close to singing it the right way. And you're always waiting. You're that 1% of the jerk in the audience that knows what's going on. But it's a privilege and a blessing and a curse. But
Yeah.
it is everything I live, breathe, think, do nonstop is all about sound, vibration, frequency, and music.
And she said, I have played by practice. I have an electric keyboard, but where I share that passion with you is just I have a daily soundtrack going on in my mind. I think I say this objectively that I'm a happy person because I'm always whistling, singing, or humming.
Yeah,
Always, even in like I find something sparks something that ties me back to a Broadway show or something I did
yeah.
chorus in high school. And I think everyone should have a soundtrack in life because it makes it much more full.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And not one of those like Family Guy soundtracks where he walks around with a
Or music. Yeah. So let's jump then to the cancer piece. So here you are, you're studying classical music at university and you're feeling not quite yourself. They're trying to get at it. And then take it from there.
Well, during the summer '95, between my junior and senior year, I was interning, and I think my official title was, "Hey, printer kid." And I was in charge of changing toner, unjamming giant, terrible printers at a financial firm, ironically in the World Trade Center on the
Oh,
68th
wow.
floor of Tower 2. And it was a brilliant summer. What a privilege to work in those towers and best subsidized cafeteria I've ever had the privilege of getting like $2 sandwiches in, at got 21 years old or whatever I was. And I wasn't playing a lot that summer because I was working and, I got back to school and I noticed right away that my left hand was weak.
Huh.
And what I mean by that, for the non-musicians out there, I couldn't play scales as quickly.
Mm.
We call that arpeggiation in the music world.
Mm.
I couldn't basically run my fingers for the visuals, like I'm doing a thing for video, not for radio, with my fingers. I couldn't run my left hand up the keys as fast as I remember doing when I finished my junior year. And I just, you're 21. All right, that's weird. What, I'll just train harder. Maybe I'm soft. I missed it, which I didn't. And then that just kept getting worse and worse and worse over the semester. And I'm a lefty as well. So I had trouble gripping
Wow.
a pen or a pencil, and I couldn't sign my name to credit cards.
All in a matter of weeks, this is happening.
This is between like August and October.
Yeah.
And I was producing musicals and I was writing music and I was trying, but I had my computer and I could type certain things until I couldn't type anymore.
Wow.
So at that point, I was like, maybe I should go see. It takes a lot for a 21-year-old to be aware of their vulnerabilities to go see a doctor. But it was campus services, so it wasn't like I went to, Hopkins or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't blame them for this. It's comedic these days now, but they thought I had, I don't know, carpal tunnel syndrome or meningitis or Epstein-Barr or something, everything but what you would normally
Yeah.
think to ask. Why would you think a 21-year-old would have brain cancer when his left hand can arpeggiate on the piano?
Right.
Not your typical symptoms to be diagnosed with. So
Nor for your
kind of
typical medical professional.
right. So shit really hit the fan after being, I would say, like acceptably misdiagnosed for months. When I slurred my speech, I had a fainting spell, my eyes went all weird, and then like, all right, can someone really take me seriously now? And by then I was only using my right hand for everything. I was composing with my right hand and conducting with my left hand because I had gross motor coordination. And got home over Thanksgiving break, saw my doctor, my pediatrician, who recommended I get an EEG from a neurologist. But I had finals to take. So in my infinite stupidity and invulnerability and invincibility, I was like, can I finish the semester? I've got things to do. And the doctor should have said, no, you're crazy. You're getting tested now. It said, fine, come back in 2 weeks, which was the worst decision ever. And everything really went to complete pot in those 2 weeks. And I could barely function afterwards. And I got back. And then I had the neurologist who found nothing wrong with me. And they said, go get an MRI. And then we said, what's an MRI?
Mm.
This is 1995.
Yeah.
Let's put everything in 30-year perspective for everyone listening and watching here. This is a history lesson.
Mm.
My story is pedagogy, right?
Mm.
This is curriculum.
It is.
And so we had the MRI. And again, just to put this in maybe a fun Gen X perspective, my mom and I went for the scan, went out for lunch, got back to the house, and the answering machine was blinking.
Mm.
Which it wouldn't normally do on a Thursday at 1 o'clock during days of our lives.
Maybe
No one's calling the
what
house.
an answering machine is too.
Yeah, right. But it said, we found something, come back. So I was pretty much diagnosed with something on a blinking machine.
Yeah.
Instead of having the slightest degree of empathy or whatever it was, calling us, whatever. I'm over it. It was a long time ago. But yeah, they found this golf ball wedged in the back of my brain and said, you need to meet with our neurosurgeon. And we did. And he was a mensch. And we planned for surgery. And they thought that it was benign. They had no idea it could be until they took it out and did tests on it. And back then there was no laparoscopy or there was nothing back then to figure out what this could possibly be. And MRIs were like Cro-Magnon compared to what they are today.
Yes. Yes.
They were like 2 hours long and terrible. So anyway, long story short, massive surgery on January 10th, 1996. Pathology comes back. It's cancer. It's not benign. You're not done yet. Let's go talk to a radiation oncology specialist. Let's convene a tumor board. This is not a normal thing for someone your age. This tumor doesn't exist in people your age. Why do you have this?
Mm.
And off we went.
And where was this all? Was this upstate New York or was it in New York City?
This was in New York City.
Yeah. We have come a long way, but we still have ways to go. So Along the way, when from like say the summer to October, where were your parents? Were they sort of observing with care? Were they sort
Oh,
of
they had no idea.
they but they
I
saw
didn't
that
tell anyone,
you were inhabilitated in some ways with your arm, right?
but I was home the whole time. They didn't.
Yeah.
Sorry, they were home the whole time. I was away.
Yeah. Wow.
Why would I tell them?
Yeah. So then you had a sort of a horrible holiday, right? Like, you go from
Yeah,
that
yeah, it
diagnosis
wasn't the
over a
best
telephone
Festivus
recorder to
possible.
the
Yeah, it was a
surgery.
terrible Festivus. Uh, but honestly, like, my dad is still a very well esteemed public educator. I mean, he's retired now, but like back in the day, he was very well esteemed in the New York City Board of Ed. So back when analog phones were all we had in our kitchens with cordless yellow rotaries, the word got out that Matt's got brain cancer, and this just became like the safe Ferris moment of Staten Island, where endless people kept calling and showing up, and it was unnecessarily uncomfortable, but it was pretty obvious that this was something that everyone was pouring over. Lou's kid has brain cancer. What do we do with him?
Yeah.
I remember like the hospital, we had too many gifts in the hospital room. They made us like remove balloons and packages, and it got too full. We were like a safety hazard with all the things showing up in the hospital for the week that I was in there. But I called the school and I told them, I don't know if I'm going to be alive to graduate. Can we do something about my grades? And, to their credit, they didn't, tell the cancer kid to go fuck himself. They said, we'll work with you. You'll definitely graduate. Figure it out. All my professors bent over backwards and we configured my schedule to work and whatever. But that spring was the worst. Absolutely the worst spring of my entire life.
Ladies and gentlemen, again today on the Caring Economy, I'm really thrilled to have Matthew Zachary with us. He's a 30-year brain cancer survivor, a troublemaker, an irreverent one, and really a tremendous voice for American healthcare. Matt, tell us about you meet January 10th is the surgery, and then you go into radiation, chemo, your spring sucks. When does the activist part click in and you realize this needs more attention?
So when Plan B became Plan A, because I couldn't no longer go to grad school, and that was like the worst day of my life at the time, I wound up going back to my hey printer kid days, and I worked for the ad agencies for about 10 years, doing IT, new media, early desktop design, Photoshop stuff, and it was fine. I learned a lot about marketing, but it took me 7 years to happen to run into my first cancer buddy. But I did so because I was able to rehabilitate myself and play piano again.
Wow.
And I wound up giving freak piano concerts for cancer patients just because I could. I would never be a professional musician or whatever anymore, but this was what I was able to do with what was dealt to me. And I met this guy named Craig who, and this is the theme, he happened to be, my whole career, my whole life has happened to be. I feel it's very purpose driven.
Happenstance, yeah.
And Craig was also bald and Jewish and in his 20s and had brain cancer from New York City. He actually went to Binghamton. I didn't know him. And he was on the board of directors of the single most influential cancer policy organization in the country. Could have asked for anything more. And Craig asked me, he's like, how would you like to be a cancer advocate? And I said, what the fuck is a cancer advocate? This
My
was
question.
2004,
Yeah.
right? Or 2003. And he's like, well, I think it could kind of mean maybe you'll help the next you have a less crappier time. I was like, all right, what do I do? And it was that moment, the timeline split, and I slowly phased out my day job to learn what version of me is a cancer advocate. And beyond Craig was Kansas when Oz became
Mhm.
Kansas became Oz, and I met this whole cottage industry.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a village people of dozens of 20, 30 somethings who are cancer fighters or survivors or advocates or caregivers or researchers or policy people. Like I found my tribe. And from there was when I decided to start Stupid Cancer because the Gen X cancer community had no voice, had no say. We were the most disequitable population by age in all of Cancerland, and it wasn't about what you had, it was how old you were.
Wow.
So I wanted to build a populist social justice movement around Gen X angst that we deserve to live and thrive with the same levels of quality and dignity and affordability as people that are 8 and 80.
Yeah. and you've done it, right?
Somehow, yes, it worked.
Well, that's the question, is this somehow, how how do you catalyze that? And I'm sure you feel like there's still a lot more to do, but you've gotten it established. Was it through interviews? Was it through calling on elected officials? Was it through the church? I mean, how does one build that kind of coalition in a youth driven cancer community?
I think it was happenstance. It had never been done before. So there was no path. We were taking a machete to the jungle to even
Mm,
make a dirt road for someone next and after us. What needed to happen, though, that I realized wasn't there, if you looked at the landscape, everything was pink ribbons and yellow wristbands, and you'll be fine and walk for us and give us money. That's all it was. Like buy a pink blender and hopefully this will do something for you and
yeah.
join smiling cancer patients in a TV show. Like, no, no, we're angry. How do you channel your mad?
Hmm.
So the brand really was about giving Gen X permission to be pissed and some kind of like dark, sardonic way to make noise and do something together that doesn't exist in America. And it was forged by the village.
Yeah.
Can we have meetups? Can we do a road trip? Hey, Matt, here's a microphone. Why don't you become a podcaster? What the fuck is a podcast? Right, this was May of '07.
It's early days.
And then like the media came along and this was a really big, we are Time Magazine Best 50 website. I was on television and the Wall Street Journal showed up and all these incredible things started to happen because it was a sexy, sassy brand at the end of Live Strong's era. And it
Mm,
was shiny and it was all about consumerism and populism and not pity parties. And I ran it like an ad agency.
yeah.
And it eventually just became something people wish they had. And that's always the strongest advocates. Or if only I knew this was there for me when I needed it, and I'm going to dedicate my life to making sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. I mean, I would envision it's like a veteran coming through a war, like you're bonded forever. You can't fake
Yeah.
it, right? Same thing with cancer. Some people have tried to fake it and usually it backfires. So for there are those who have had cancer, surviving with dealing with it now and their family, allies, and then there's the rest of the world. What are some of the digestible points you want to convey to the rest of the world right now? Because we need everyone to care and think about this. Because one, it could happen to them, but also it just matters. And I wonder what you say to the uninitiated.
We are the best and worst country in many different aspects. Everything that I'm doing is uniquely American. It shouldn't have to be.
Hmm.
And it's sad to say that we need something like this in our country to protect ourselves from something that's supposed to be helping us do better. And it's the pro and the con of what you get for living here. If you don't like it, change the channel. But I've heard great things and terrible things from other countries as well. There is no ideal system to my knowledge, and everything is largely anecdotal until it's not.
Hmm.
So I have friends in Canada, Australia, Germany, Dubai. Like they all say, "Hey, it's free, but what's the over under? Free but or amazing yet? How do
Hmm.
you square any circle with all of this, especially when you're dealing with oncology?" So there's no one universal message about what I do that's uniquely American. It's really too easy to tell people to just be your own advocate. I think that's the worst thing you can. Oh, just go be this. What's wrong with you? How would you not be your own advocate? That's rude. It's obnoxious. It's offensive,
Doesn't
and it's
scale.
assumptive. So it's try to not take any shit from anyone and defend yourself when you feel like you don't, your spidey sense goes off.
Hmm.
But even that's like a cat poster. Hang in there, right? It's you are going to be disabused by a store that you never expected to be shopping inside of.
Yeah.
Whether someone's paying for it or you're paying for it, it's still a store that you didn't go to college to study to be inside of.
Yeah.
So you're at the mercy of any specific unique system, and you have to hope. And that's the worst part is you shouldn't happen to have to know me or you or someone else to get less screwed and get what you want on your terms.
Yeah. And certainly education is a big part of that, which is part of what your irreverent way works. And that takes me to my sort of really exciting question for you that we've talked about offline, which is about a voting bloc. You want, even if you only have those allies and advocates that you get, you should still have the right as a voter, as an American citizen, to have your representatives in government looking after your best interest. And that takes some education, of course. But you shared with me that you're in the process of basically organizing the cancer survivors, people dealing with cancer, their allies as a voting bloc, which I think is genius, like a pack. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a brand new idea. There's we throw the word lobby around all the time. We throw the Hill days around and congressional hearings and testimonies and all these things. I feel like that's dial up advocacy these
Mhm.
days. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It takes 5 years to do anything. But my thought process, my theory a couple of years ago was the NRA has the gun lobby. Why doesn't pharma have the cancer lobby? And what would it mean in a Dale Carnegie just suppose that there is a cancer voter block? Who's in it? How many people? What's the single issue? There's no constitutionality to it, unlike the NRA. But what would the cancer community want if it dropped its biology and wanted one law passed that isn't about not dying?
Mhm.
What is that? It was always this theory, just suppose, what if, why not? And why hasn't this been done yet? And that's actually something that's in my book that's coming out
Mhm.
called We the Patients How to Understand, Navigate, and Survive America's Healthcare Nightmare. How did we get to here from the 1910s when Teddy Roosevelt first said universal health care? And get what? The AFL bought out the American Medical Association to screw America over. So thank you, Union, for ruining that 120 years ago. That's a great story that starts the book out. The fundamental premise that I didn't vote for prior authorizations to exist. I didn't vote for pharmacy benefit managers to get in the way of me and my doctor. I didn't vote for my insurance company to be beholden to a holding company that owns a bank and the doctors that decide whether I get what I want. I didn't vote for that. So how did we get here? And we can't vote. There's no mechanism to currently vote ourselves out of that at the
Mhm.
state or federal level. And we can do our Hill days and get these bills passed and get coverage for this. But the cancer community could be as much as 60 million Americans. It's easily 19 million
Mhm.
on paper because that's the actual number of people that are living in America over the age of 18 and under the age of 90 that had cancer.
Wow.
What would we want if we had civic power at the ballot? That's what makes this different. All
Mhm.
these lobby groups, they don't have civic power at the ballot. They don't primary incumbents like the NRA does or Planned Parenthood does or the Veterans Affairs do. That's what this came down to. Is what would happen if,
Mhm.
and what's the issue that would unite every American around this from the cancer community? So
Go ahead.
that's the theory.
Yeah. But what are some of the, so if you blue sky, what are some of the things that you would want, like you do a survey of your candidates in a primary for their positions on certain issues. So what kinds of things would the cancer community want? Would it be greater transparency or accessibility, or because everything's done federally and statewide and local, and there's so many different ways, but I wonder if there are a couple things in particular that are just no-brainers that you would want.
Yeah, it's none of those, which is the best part because everyone assumes, oh, you're a lobby group does it. No, we want mandatory oncology medical debt forgiveness
Yep.
and mandatory oncology nurse navigation. We
Because
want
have helped to get through it, and
to
you
avoid financial toxicity, which is largely from not even cost of care, it's from delay deny.
kicking the can down the alley.
Insurance companies now cost the system more money than the drugs
Wow.
because they hold all the cards and they are too powerful and they're in the pockets of everyone at the state level, or they just find ways to get around any loopholes that wind up protecting people from the harm that they cause.
Hmm.
And as of this taping, Congress just excoriated them, but they're not going to change. You can't shame them. It doesn't matter at this point. You
Yeah.
have to look at the transfer of money and power.
Hmm.
And the transfer of money and power is like, how do we save money by helping cancer patients navigate and that includes fighting delay deny tactics. Most cancer patients who have the opportunity to go in for care fear medical debt, which delays them going for care. And
Hmm.
then once they get to care in that pre delayed fashion, the denial engines kick in that gets them even more delayed, which costs more money when they're diagnosed at a later stage. That's just one example
Yeah.
of absolute unnecessary waste and fraud.
And then there's the outer ring, right? The family and the community around the individual.
Right.
And
And
those
then there's the
voters,
economic losses to the state in terms of mortgage taxes and or sorry, real estate taxes, payroll taxes, sales taxes, contributing to your state's economy.
yeah,
What percentage of voters in how many states are affected at what economic level that harm the state?
yep,
Because insurance companies cause financial harm to those voters in those districts.
yeah,
This is a different way to think about this as how do we protect cancer patients from the harm of health insurance, not help them get drugs to keep them alive.
yeah. And I love the idea of the block of the cancer community and decidedly not the pharma who are researching and developing drugs and making money off of that, or the employees that are doing that. It's the people who actually have, because the pharma industry does lobby, right? They've got plenty of interest taken care of.
Well, pharma, ironically, is the least worst player here. If anything, they are the
Insurance.
good guys compared to everything else because they want the patient on the right, whether it's, they're like
Yeah.
progressive insurance.
Yeah.
We want the patient on the right medicine for them. If it's ours, great. If
Yeah.
it's not, either way, everyone wins when a cancer patient gets on the medicine that's right for them based on their conversation with their doctor. And the blood clots in the artery of that authenticity no longer happening 85% of the time is health insurance companies.
Yeah.
So the health insurance industry is now a machine who is completely fixated on profiteering at the expense of harm to
Mm.
consumers. And pharma is powerless to do anything about that unless there is a cancer lobby vying for laws in states that will protect us from the harm of healthcare.
Interesting. So I'm mindful of the time. A few more questions. How is this going to evolve or develop, and how are there any examples of elected people who you think are models or examples to look at?
There
Um,
are none.
okay,
We are like stupid cancer foraging through with machetes. This is a very intentional, slow burn. I'll even call it a quiet scream.
I love it. I
This
love
is
it.
a pro Wall Street. This is a pro provider, pro industry, anti payer, waste, fraud, and abuse consumer protection strategy. It's going to take a while to build the electorate. If anyone wants to learn more, they can go to wethepatients.org and just join. There's nothing to do. We're collecting names and zip codes,
Yeah.
period.
Great. I want to say a few of the things you're involved with and put it out, and we'll put it in the Chiron or in the notes as well. But the new book, your podcast, and the new initiative. So, what's the book and where does one find it?
So, wethepatientsbook.com or just visit matthewzachary.com. That's the hub for everything. I just relaunched my website. It's
Cool.
very happy to finally have a world-class website for the first time in 20 years. Check it out. It's got the book, it's got the show, it's got We the Patients. I'm doing a benefit concert in New York City to launch the book, and that money goes to We the Patients. I'm getting back behind the piano for the first time publicly
Awesome.
at the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts, Merkin Hall by Lincoln Center, for a 2 hour solo piano concert and book reading,
And when is that?
April 28th.
Okay, we'll mark that down. It's I shouldn't say it's funny, but I coach AI and I was coaching a friend, Stephen, who just yesterday who survived a brain tumor. And he wants to, I'd be curious about your take on this. He wants to write a book, a man's book about surviving cancer, because he believes, and it seems to be the case, that most of the memoir type books on struggling with cancer are written by women. And
Correct.
so that was fun, the workshop. That led to another conversation where with AI, you can riff on these things. And I thought, why not do, like Susie Essman's a friend of ours, like, why not do Cancer's a Joke? and it's a stand-up comedian kind of night where you actually have comedians who have dealt with cancer or have points of view on it treat it seriously through humor, which is a great way to deal with issues, right? But I wonder, has that been done? It sounds like your concert is a variation on that.
Well, it's been done rote, ironically. There's been a ton of cancer comedy, cancer fights comedy. There's a Sharon Rotberg produced something called Comedy Against Cancer, something like that. Will Ferrell has colleges in comedy. Seth Rogen has a college
Okay.
Alzheimer's college cancer thing going on.
All right.
Um,
Not
but
so
there
proud.
there is I'm a big fan of don't duplicate and don't do things unless there's a market for it, unless you want to do it for
Yeah.
cathartic purposes. I represent a brilliant nonprofit organization, which is a spinoff of Stupid Cancer for Y chromosomes only.
I
And
love
it's
it.
called Man Up to Cancer.
I love it. I've never heard of
Manuptocancer.org. That's TO, not the number two. Man Up to Cancer is founded by my friend, Trevor Maxwell, who has a brilliant man cancer book.
it. Cool.
They are the only Y chromosome only support community in the world.
Awesome.
They have about 2,500 men that are in there right now. I produced a podcast series for them called Walk It Off. Men Don't Talk About Cancer. And I am a card carrying brand ambassador for men with cancer
Yep.
around the world because we don't talk about it
Yep.
mostly. And we need to know that we can be a wolf pack together in private without the girls to share all the crap that we wouldn't do anywhere else.
Love it. So I'm going to give a shout out to Steve, and I won't use his last name for privacy reasons, but I'm going to share all this with him as well as on this broadcast. And at the opening, I should have thanked our mutual friend, Deborah Richmond, who's the healthcare
Thank
consultant
you, Deb.
extraordinaire, who brought us together and is genius. So the last question I always want to ask people, Matthew, now that we know where to find you, is pearls of wisdom. And I don't mean necessarily related to cancer, but in living a purpose-driven life, and helping others who want to do something in the same way. What are sort of, do you have a mantra like saying or any pearls of wisdom you've gleaned through your life that have served you well and have served others or could serve others well?
So I have two. The first is a George Carlin bit.
Love George Carlin.
If you haven't watched this or go watch it now, George Carlin did a beautiful bit whittling down the Ten Commandments to two. At the end of the day, be honest and faithful. Try not to kill anyone and keep your religion to yourself. That's the first one, which is basically don't be a dick. I have ascribed to just enough of the woo woo to help me sleep at night. And instead of fighting the river or surrendering to it,
Mhm.
be the river.
Cool. Not ride it, but be it. I love that. And take others with you. Very cool.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Matthew Zachary for joining us today on the Caring Economy, and we're going to have him back when the book is out and we get this voting block going. I want to help however I can. He has been not only a cancer survivor, an advocate, an artist, and irreverent all the way, and I think both a lifelong learner and a lifelong teacher, which is what I try to be, and that river metaphor is a perfect example. So, Matthew Zachary, thank you so much for joining us today on the Caring Economy.
absolute pleasure, Toby. Thank you.